Do you know what's happening with the American soybean farmers? I'm serious, because following this administration's disastrous tariff policy, China placed a retaliatory 20% tariff on American soybeans. Previously, our largest importer, they purchased over $12.6 billion in soybeans last year. But this year, China has purchased $0 and instead has pivoted to our competitors in Brazil and Argentina. We do use a lot of American soybeans at home, mostly crushed for livestock feed or biodiesel blend fuel, but nearly half of our yield is typically exported, until now. The value-added taxes have pushed American soybean prices to a 34% price increase, making them just too expensive to export. So what does a farmer do when she can't sell her beans?
This is unbelievable. Scott Besson is trying to claim that China is saying Joe Biden is the reason they stopped buying soybeans from the United States. Of course, we all know the actual reason is because of Donald Trump's insane tariffs, but look at this clip.
And then under President Biden, their feet were not held to the fire for these ag purchases. And at the meeting in Geneva, when I asked them, why didn't you continue buying soybeans and the other products, they had one word. Guess what it was? Biden.
Right off the bat, this is insanely disingenuous. China did not wake up one morning and decide they're going to stop buying soybeans from the United States because Biden. The direct cause is the trade war initiated by Donald Trump's 2025 sweeping tariffs, which made U.S. soybeans uncompetitive or completely blocked by retaliatory tariffs. But we can get even more specific here. China applied heavy retaliatory duties in response to Trump's tariffs, about 34% total on U.S. soybeans. Those duties effectively priced American soybeans out of the Chinese market entirely during peak season. Because of that, China's purchases have fell to zero and have stayed there ever since. And this is absolutely destroying American farmers as they rely heavily on China to purchase their soybeans. They are their number one buyer. But of course, Besson and Trump want you to ignore all of the facts and just blame Biden for all of their mistakes. It's textbook political theater. Shift the blame, avoid all accountability, and redirect outrage.
I think we'll make a deal. They threatened us with rare earths, and I threatened them with tariffs, but I could also threaten them with many other things, like airplanes. You know about airplanes because they can't get parts for their airplanes. We build their airplanes. We do a great job. They're largely Boeings, and we could stop the parts. We did stop the parts, actually, when they did the initial threat. They closed down over 400 of their airplanes, but we don't want to do that. But we have a much simpler thing. If we don't make a deal, we'll charge them a very substantial tariff. And they'll be paying us hundreds of billions of dollars a year, which they're basically paying right now.
This is hilarious.
Well, this year they'll harvest and store, hoping to offload as much as possible, likely at a dumped rate, or risk storage costs. Soybeans are a rotational crop, often with corn, so next year they'll hope to go into planting season with maybe a different regional crop. But their seed, fertilizer, and equipment costs are usually covered by the previous year's harvest. And this is where the spiral begins. The last time the American soybean market took a dive in 2009, farm bankruptcies spiked. And the number of bankruptcies, even going into harvest this year, are already up, with no trend to slow. So in response, Trump is considering a $10 billion bailout. But farmers don't want aid, they want trade. They want to sell their crops like they have for generations. And this possible bailout is just a repackaging of their own money and calling it a handout. Farmers pay tariffs on inputs. Use John Deere parts, for example. You go to your local retailer and place an order for a chain for your combine. You get back to your farm and see on the box, made in China. You just paid a tariff price on that part, not including the 60% increase in parts since the first Trump administration. But John Deere marked that price up for the part because they had to import it. Then they paid the U.S. Treasury their import tax, and now you're hoping the federal government flips your money back around and calls it a bailout, all while your beans sit siloed with no buyers. Every day, I talk to farmers about opportunities to add wind turbines to their land, really as a zero input cost crop. And the last reason I want a landowner to consider leasing their acreage for renewable energy is because they are hurting so badly from an economically disastrous decision by this administration. One-time relief is not a solution. The longer we keep the doors closed to our foreign trade partners, including China, the more difficult it will be to reform those trade lines in the future. Farmers don't want aid, they want trade.
So just to recap, Trump is at the exact same time incinerating $70 billion of taxpayer money. But what's the one thing that there's not enough money for. You. There's not enough money for you. There's enough money for a $50 billion tariff bailout. There's enough money for Argentina, but there's not enough money for you. They don't have enough money to help a family of four that's going to have to pay $300 more per month to keep their health care plan. They have the money to cover for Trump's economic incompetence, but apparently they don't have the money to prevent a small business owner or a taxi driver or an early retiree from losing their health care. This is not complicated at all. Donald Trump's economy is already hard as it is because of his choices to create shortages of electricity, of lumber, of food, of healthcare. Electricity prices are going up at twice the rate of inflation. Vegetables are up nearly 40%. Grocery prices are at their highest in 3 years. And now people are supposed to find hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to spare every single month or give up their healthcare coverage and hope they don't get sick. We could end this shutdown right now if Republicans sat down and worked with us to protect people's health care. By the way, the people who are being particularly hurt by these healthcare premium increases live in Republican states. Now, that shouldn't matter, but we are in politics. And just understand, we are standing here fighting for your constituents. If we were a little more cynical, we would let you stew in the most unpopular major legislation that has been passed in generations. But we want to solve this problem for not just the 24 million people on the so-called exchange, but for everybody who's about to see their premiums spike. Let's sit down and fix this.
Hey, everybody. I wanted to ask, how many people know about what has occurred in the last 24 hours or so with China and soybeans? And I want to ask you farmers if you know what is happening with China and soybeans. Due to Donald Trump's tariff war, there are clear as day repercussions that can't be fixed in 30 days, can't be fixed in this crop season. What do you feel is going to happen next? How do we move forwards from where we're at now, thanks to Donald Trump and his tariffs? Let me know.
The problem is China doesn't want to buy our soybeans because of the trade war. And so prices for U.S. soybeans are plummeting below the cost to produce soybeans. This means farmers who usually 1 year do corn and then 1 year do soybeans and then 1 year do corn and then 1 year do soybeans as part of their crop rotation are getting screwed in 50% of the years. And it's easy to go, oh, well, then they should just not do soybeans. But remember, 31% of what we produce are soybeans. If we take that much production and push it into cotton or sorghum or wheat, we'll just tank the prices of that below the cost of production. And what happens? More farmer bankruptcies.
One of the things I want is China's going to buy soybeans. I want China to stop with the fentanyl. I don't want them to play the rare earth game with us.
But you want them to, but do you think they will make a deal on soybeans?
I do believe, yeah, because otherwise I'm not going to make a deal. No, I want them to buy. Our farmers have been boycotted by China, and in particular our soybean farmers, and I want them to start buying soybeans, at least in the amount that they were buying before. And I believe they'll be able to do that. Right now, China's paying a tremendous amount of money in tariffs. They'd be paying about 157% tariff, which is, record-setting type tariff. They probably can't pay that much. And I'm okay with that. We can lower that, but they have to do things for us too. It's no longer a one-way street.
Donald Trump is trying to morally blackmail China seriously. He posted on Truth Social on Wednesday that the soybean farmers of our country are being hurt because China, for negotiating reasons only, is not buying. Well, of course China is negotiating, isn't it obvious? So let's just get this straight. Trump raised tariffs on China and then expects China to just accept those tariffs and still keep buying American goods. How does that even make sense? Am I the only one who thinks this sounds like moral blackmail? At the end of the day, it's China's choice what to buy. And I do feel sorry for US farmers, but if China doesn't fight back, then Chinese businesses and farmers will suffer the same way. And Trump says he will meet with President Xi Jinping in the next 4 weeks. Whether she even agrees to meet or not is another question. We don't hear any messages about the meeting from China. But here's the thing. In China, it's simple. If you are fear to us, we'll fear to you. If the US doesn't move on tariffs, it's hard to see any real progress. So let's just wait and see. I'm Kitty Tom, bringing you a new perspective. Talk to you later.
How is this a good deal for me at all?
What if the administration is giving you and other farmers a bailout? Does that help?
Well, I want trade, not aid. I mean, I understand that there's a lot of boys that's painted in the corner and they're not going to survive without it. But bailing out Argentina doesn't help my market. Sending me the tariff money that me and every other taxpayer in this country is paying for. I buy parts and I buy groceries and I'm paying the tariffs exactly like everybody else is. Sending me that money doesn't fix my problem. I mean, to me, currently all we want to do is throw money everywhere at problems instead of actually sit down and try to fix one. If Argentina fails, okay, they're my second biggest competition. If we're going to make American agriculture great and make it stand on its own 2 feet, then I need my second biggest competitor to fail, because that only leaves me one to fight.
I'm going to show you a perfect example of media malpractice. It's this CNN clip where this soybean farmer is talking about how bad things are right now. Watch.
In a difficult farm economy, and then the trade war started, and that's taking things from bad to worse. And now our biggest export customer, China, has not purchased any soybeans from this year's crop. That equates to about 25% of the whole American soybean crop this year. And we desperately need that market. And unfortunately, we're in a standoff right now.
And this is why it's frustrating. That farmer never once said who started the trade war that tanked his industry. Not once. And that's not even the worst part. Just look at this damn cryon. Trump considering $10 billion bailout for American farmers. Real damage directly tied to Trump's own decisions is happening, and the media sanitizes it. And they're giving him credit for slapping a bandage on a wound he inflicted. And reporters keep doing these interviews without asking the one question that actually matters. Who did you vote for? Because if that person voted for the guy who started the trade war, bailed out Argentina's farmers, and undercut their ability to turn a profit, don't you think it's relevant to ask if they vote for Trump again? I don't think the media is going to start asking the question anytime soon, but I think it's crucial, because if you're complaining about getting burned after voting for fire, but don't directly blame it, chances are you'd vote the same way if given the chance.
Trump's bailout could have the added effect of hurting American farmers, who, we should note, are already suffering immensely under the effects of Trump's chaotic whipsawing global trade war. For the second time in a decade, Trump has picked a fight with China at the expense of American farmers, who make up, obviously, a pretty sizable portion of his political base. You see, American farmers grow a lot of soybeans, and China buys them. Last year, China bought over half, 52% of our total soybean exports. They are our largest customer. Billions and billions of dollars. This year is a different story. You see that graph? This graph shows our soybean exports to China over the last year. That line in May is where sales stop entirely, kaput, completely, all as a result of Trump's tariffs. Farmers are now left with crops they cannot sell, and it is having an absolutely catastrophic effect on their livelihood. Okay, so how does Argentina factor into this? Well, guess what? Argentina also grows a lot of soybeans. And Trump's buddy, President Milei, just slashed export tariffs to make it much cheaper for China to buy them. In other words, China is replacing American-grown soybeans with Argentinian-grown soybeans. And Trump is bailing out Argentina as they take sales directly away from American farmers.
Bailing out Argentina doesn't help my market. Sending me the tariff money that me and every other taxpayer in this country is paying for. I buy parts and I buy groceries and I'm paying the tariffs exactly like everybody else is. Sending me that money doesn't fix my problem. I mean, to me, currently all we want to do is throw money everywhere at problems instead of actually sit down and try to fix one. If Argentina fails, okay, they're my second biggest competition. If we're going to make American agriculture great and make it stand on its own 2 feet, then I need my second biggest competitor to fail.
Again, this is really crazy, right? I mean, think about this. Trump is explicitly, through his unilateral actions, hurting his own country, the farmers in his own country, who voted for him by huge margins in order to help out his right-wing buddy in Argentina, all while the government that his party controls remains shut down. It is a set of circumstances almost beyond parody for the so-called American first president.
I'm no economist, but this choice seems to be really odd. Like cooking oil, by the way, it's used cooking oil. Like for the whole year, US probably import like less than $500 million used cooking oil from China. Okay. But what's that for? This used cooking oil is to transfer into fuel so that it can be used by truck, airplane, energy. Basically, it's energy. Which means if China don't export, it can be just transfer into energy. And every country need endless energy. So not buying it just wouldn't mean anything. I don't know. Odd choice.
Soybean farmers in the United States are upset with Donald Trump after he bails out Argentina, which is one of its greatest soybean competitors. So it's the United States, Brazil, and then Argentina who sell soybeans in such quantities to China. And then once Argentina got the bailout, Milei celebrated with having a rock concert, which, stupid. His country is like pretty sucky at the moment. Like their people are suffering, but he wanted to celebrate. So I guess whatever. Immediately after they sold their soybeans, Argentina did, to China, and they did not charge them tariffs. There is rumors that Trump will give the farmers a $10 billion bailout, which is much smaller than Argentina's. And it is also, according to farmers, not enough, because that is not the point. But what do you guys think? Until next time, Cato out.
This is breaking news. Donald Trump continues to erode our foreign relationship with trade with China. Now he's announcing that he wants to stop certain trade deals like cooking oils because we can produce our own. Here is the Truth Social post. And I quote, "I believe that China purposefully is not buying our soybeans and causing difficulty for our soybean farmers is an economically hostile act. We are considering terminating business with China having to do with cooking oil and other elements of trade as retribution. As an example, we can easily produce cooking oil ourselves, so we don't need to purchase it from China." You're probably wondering, yeah, no big deal. We can make our own. But believe it or not, we imported approximately 1.27 million metric tons of used cooking oil from China in 2024, which represented significant, I think, over half of what China exports throughout the year. Or actually, no, it's right there at the bottom. That's my bad. 43%. This comes after Trump threatened a 100% additional tariff on rare earth materials to China. And this is after Donald Trump was offended by a secret meeting between Ping, the Indian leadership, and of course, Vladimir Putin, where they were making trade deals behind his back. And this is the energy that he brings, retribution, and of course, any sort of get back that he can do. That is the news. We will see how that affects oil availability and pricing. You can follow for more news, but you don't have to.
Did you know you're actually paying for Trump's tariffs twice? And I'm going to talk about soybeans here. I know. Stay with me, though. So here's what's happening with the Chinese tariffs. Tariffs hit 145% on Chinese goods, but American companies pay the tariffs, not China, and then the American companies pass that cost on to you. And economists have found that consumers bear almost 95% of tariff costs through higher prices. That's strike one. Now, meanwhile, China has completely stopped buying American soybeans. I told you I'd get there. Zero, zilch, not a single shipment since May. Last year, China bought $12.5 billion worth of soybeans from the Americans. That's half of all U.S. soybean exports. Now farmers are drowning. It costs them about $11 to grow a bushel, but they're only getting about $9 or $10 per bushel, so they're literally losing money on every soybean crop grown in America. Farm bankruptcies are the highest they've been since 2021. So, where's China buying their soybeans from? Brazil. They exported about 2.5 billion bushels to China this year alone. And Argentina, too. If you're paying close attention, you know that we bailed out Argentina lately with $20 billion in aid, and they immediately turned around and sold massive amounts of soybeans to China, which China would have been buying from us. Wait, there's more. Now the United States government is planning another $10 to $14 billion American farmer bailout using our tax dollars. We already gave American farmers $10 billion in March. That's your tax dollars. That's strike two. So you're paying higher prices at the store for tariffs, and you're funding bailouts to American farmers who are hurting from the tariffs, and China is just buying from South America instead of American farmers. And then what happens? Well, we permanently lose the soybean market. So comment below. Does it make sense? Or wait, what? If you need me to explain who's actually winning here, I will. Spoiler, it's Brazil, Argentina, and China. Not U.S. farmers, not U.S. taxpayers. You can follow me, Sue O'Connell. I'm a commentator, and you can watch me on NBCBoston.com or YouTube.com/NBC10Boston.
Breaking news. MAGA soybean farmers across the southern United States are crying and complaining about the Chinese not buying our soybeans. What? The Chinese are not buying our soybeans because of Trump's tariffs, where they have in turn placed tariffs on our soybeans and made them so expensive that we can't sell soybeans to China, and China is one of the biggest buyers of soybeans in the world. What? Well, MAGA farmers, who did you vote for? MAGA farmers, we tried to tell you this would not be a pretty picture. MAGA farmers, you not remember back in 2018, 2017, and Trump had another tariff war with China, and the same thing happened? Well, did you not expect it to happen again? There was about a $15 or $16 billion bailout. Socialism for the farmers. Oh, it's okay for you all to get payments when Trump messes.
I'm going to tell you, I'm starting to get real suspicious of whatever Trump is doing with Argentina. You already know that Trump has blown up the Chinese market for American soybeans. And now Argentina is sending their soybeans to China. And then we bailed out Argentina to the tune of $40 billion. Now look at this. Trump is suggesting that America is going to buy beef from Argentina to bring down prices for the American consumers. Yeah, American beef is high. You know why? Because there's a monopoly. But instead of addressing the monopoly, he's going to import beef from Argentina, who has already taken the American soybean market and has already been bailed out by the American taxpayers. So now we're blowing up the American beef market too? Trump has to be doing the bidding of another country to destroy America. There is no way you can make any of this make any sense.
It's quite challenging. I mean, it's a bloodbath, or becoming one.
You know what really grinds my gears? Being told we can't use our tax dollars to give people health care, but we can. In fact, we must use our tax dollars to bail out farmers who literally voted for the exact policies that are destroying their livelihoods right now. Apparently, socialism is bad. Unless you own a tractor, then it's called farm aid.
Right now. And what we need is a strong demand for soybeans and other ag products, and get some trade going instead of scaring it away with tariffs.
Best case scenario for this year?
That we never have to talk about tariffs again. Free trade is the answer.
China not buying U.S. soybeans just adds to dwindling hopes, as Fuller expects to start harvesting his beans around October 1st.
Gilkinson says other than the 2012 drought, now is the worst point he's been in the business.
The prices are driven by supply and demand. We'd like to say it's all tariffs. Tariffs has a lot to do with it.
Let's talk about those soybean farmers. For years, China was their biggest customer, their cash crop, their golden goose. Then came Trump and his big, beautiful tariffs. And what did farmers say?
Tariffs are great. Trade wars are easy to win. And they overwhelmingly voted for him. Well, congratulations, everyone. You won. Here's your prize, financial ruin. And now these same farmers are speaking out and calling the situation a bloodbath and quite challenging. Oh, it's challenging? You mean the predictable consequences of the policies you championed are challenging? China stopped buying American soybeans because of Trump's idiotic tariffs. They found a new supplier, Argentina. And here's where it goes from tragic to absolutely comedic. Trump just gave Argentina a $20 billion bailout. Let me say that again slowly. American taxpayers are subsidizing Argentina to undercut American farmers. We are literally funding our own competition. We're paying Argentina to take American jobs. America first, ladies and gentlemen. America first. To pay for Argentina's competitive advantage against American workers. You cannot make this up. And now these farmers want bailouts. They want socialism, but only the kind that helps them, of course. The same folks who spent decades railing against government handouts and welfare queens now have their hands out faster than you can say cognitive dissonance. Student loan forgiveness, that's socialism. Healthcare, that's socialism. Farm subsidies after voting for the tariffs that destroy your own industry, that's necessary support for hardworking Americans. We warned them, economists warned them, everyone with a functioning understanding of international trade warned them. But no, they knew better. So here's my position. You voted for this. You own this. These are your consequences. And the rest of us shouldn't have to pay for your expensive economics lesson. Class dismissed.
Thank you for watching Great Minds Blacks.